Welcome to the podcast. My name's Jonathan Scott, and I want to jump right in and tell you a little bit about what we hope to do with this podcast and introduce ourselves. So to kick things off, this podcast is coming to you from Razorleaf. The team here has put this together, and I've got a couple folks with me that we'll get around to doing some introductions in a moment. But if you haven't heard of us, let me tell you a little bit about Razorleaf. So we are a software and services firm focused on the engineering and manufacturing space. So all things digital related to products, people who make and design products, build them, that sort of thing. That's what we do. We help people deploy software systems. We help them get those adopted in their environment and update their processes to use those tools. But anything really in this space related to technology, digital, and making products. So that's kind of who we are. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name's Jonathan Scott, and my background's in engineering. I went to school, came out, started working in a couple of different industries, and landed in the nuclear industry for a while, making robots. Had a great time doing it, but fell in love with software and technology. So really got into CAD tools and design tools and how we could be better engineers. And that's what I found I really loved. So I've been doing PDM and PLM and these sorts of technologies for, about 25 years now. And I've done a little bit of everything. I've worked with configuring systems and installing them and coding and training folks on how to use them and business process re-engineering. And I just love it. I eat this stuff for breakfast. So these days I spend a lot of time just talking with customers, talking about strategy. Where are people going? What are they doing with the tools? How are they using to improve their business or their organization? So that's a bit about me, but I've got some other folks with me here that are going to be helping put this podcast together and organizing what we talk about. Let them introduce themselves to you. So Jen, over to you.
Sure. Thanks. My name is Jen Ferello. I've heard myself referred to as an industry veteran, which always cracks me up because it sounds so old and grizzled, and I flatter myself that I'm not that. But I have spent the last several decades in the 3D engineering software space. In fact, even when I was in additive manufacturing for a brief period, it was still on the software side of things. So like Jonathan, I'm definitely in love with software, but even more so throughout my career and even in my personal life, my primary focus has really been connecting people with solutions. Sometimes the solution is the software that I was representing. Other times it was a company or a person, but often it was just an idea, a concept, a new way of thinking. So I'm really excited about this podcast because that's exactly what it's pretty much all about.
Right. No, I totally agree, Jen. I think there's a lot of good stuff that we want to talk about that connects to exactly the background that you have. But Eric, how about you? Introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Jonathan. So I'm Eric Doubell. I started Razorleaf in 2000, but I've been in the PLM industry since about 1997. Prior to that, I spent about 15 years in IT and development and manufacturing, engineering, finance, legal industries, a bunch of different places. But I started Razorleaf because I saw PLM as an enterprise business system that really wasn't well understood by anybody, the people who are putting it in, IT, management, anybody. So I thought it had tremendous potential to change an organization. And I thought it'd be fun to be involved in that industry and help with that knowledge transfer and that adoption of these kinds of solutions.
I'm with you, Eric. It has been a lot of fun, right? We've been working together for a long time, and I think it's been very interesting bringing out that topic, right, with folks, helping educate folks, talking about what these tools can do for people. So I totally agree with you. I think that's true. I think that leads us right to what do we want to do with this podcast, right? What are we all about here?
Well, and you mentioned educating people. That's really what we're going to be doing here. We'll be here on a weekly basis talking about or sharing our thoughts on topics in the digital manufacturing space. Generally, the podcast will be about 30 minutes in length, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit shorter.
Depends on if you let me talk.
Yeah, it's true. Does tend to make them longer. The primary point is that the pace and complexity of product development has accelerated to the point that even a small reduction in time to market can translate into major benefits. And what we're really looking to do with this podcast is like I said in my intro, connecting people with solutions, providing you with the thoughts, concept details, sometimes even introductions to people that will make navigating the progression to all things digital just a little bit easier. We work with a lot of different companies, helping them transform their businesses, and we've learned a lot along the way. Some of you we work with, some of you we may never get a chance to work with. But the point is that the sharing of information multiplies its utility. So much of digitalization is about breaking down silos. And that's what we're here to do, is break it down the silos. Along the way, you'll get to know a little bit about Razorleaf, who we are, who we work with, and how we know what we know.
So, Jen, one of the other things I think we should point out why the reasons we're doing this is that really we're a bunch of technical people. And we looked at the organization, we found that we have a lot in common. Basically, we like to help others. We want to make a difference. We want to solve problems. And, I'm really looking at this podcast as an opportunity to do those things, to share experiences with people, to have people understand better what's going on so that they can solve the problems they've got. And hopefully that'll make them able to improve their organizations, have a better understanding of where they want to go and how to get there. And so, I think that we can really tie it into the reasons we do what we do.
Yeah. Well, and I know it's going to be easy for me. There's lots of this stuff that I just love, and I hope I hope people don't get tired of that. But I really dig this stuff. I think there's a lot of topics that I want us to dig into, and I know each of us will bring maybe a different lens to this. But speaking for myself, I'll say I know I want to talk about obviously the software, right? Software and hardware and that kind of thing. But I want to talk about roles, processes, organizations. How do people line up to use this stuff? What are they doing that's new and novel? And what do they need to change about how organizations work to deliver digital products? I think there are a lot of neat concepts and neat ideas about how you run projects, how you put these things in place, and what are the new concepts even in industry related to these technologies and how people are doing it. So there's a lot of fun things I want to talk about there. And then some that, around the edges, different perspectives on this, like standards is a fun one, right? Everybody's probably laughing at that. Really? Standards fun? But I don't mean that I think we want to dig into every ISO standard as we go through the podcast, but there are some that people don't know about that are interesting, that are worth digging into, that are worth drawing out and saying, why did somebody make that standard? What's that about? How does that help? That kind of thing. And there's lots of parts of the life cycle too that we don't always talk about, when people talk about PLM. And, this podcast, I don't think it will be just about PLM. I certainly hope not. But I know we'll have to talk about that. And I know life cycle is important, and talking about the pieces of it that don't always get attention when we think about, upfront and requirements and at the end and service and repair and those kinds of things. But again, not to overly focus on PLM. I think there's a lot of other stuff that we want to talk to there.
And I agree with that. It's aside from PLM or the software, the processes, et cetera, I want to make sure that we're also talking about some of the trends in the digital transformation. Things like organizational change management. A lot of times the hard part of introducing any technology is actually the people. And it's a topic that doesn't get talked about nearly enough because it is challenging. But aside from that, things like IoT and how that's changing the way products are made and delivered and serviced. Additive manufacturing, which is creating a whole industry around mass customization. How all of the new technologies and processes are actually changing the next generation of manufacturing employees. It's changing the workforce itself as well as the skills required in manufacturing. And of course, trends wouldn't be trends without talking about augmented reality, machine learning, and AI.
Right on. Yeah, we got to have a few buzzwords in there too, right?
Always.
And I think we got to not forget that, there's a people aspect to this too. I know for me, what I'm hoping to do is to talk to people. I want to talk to industry leaders. I want to talk to customers. I want to talk to analysts. I want to talk to resellers. And I want to talk about things like state of industry. What are the trends? What do people see coming? Where do they think people have missed the boat or heading in the wrong direction? Whether that's, industry people or vendors heading in the wrong direction, or customers who are using these solutions and have run into roadblocks and how they get past them. It's an opportunity to kind of share the good, the bad, and the ugly a little bit. And even an unusual one, talk about resellers and, why do we want to talk about that? But one of the things is they're kind of the front end of this. They're the ones who help educate people on what these systems do. So they convince them to buy them, obviously. But so they do that, but people are being educated different ways now. So how is that changing? How do you learn about these things? What's the best way to decide where you should be going? And then what expectations should you have in there? I think there's a ton of stuff to talk about. And I'm just really excited to talk to a bunch of people about how they see these things, because I think that makes us all smarter. The more perspectives and outlooks we have on things, the better we can take that data and decide what's right for us.
No, I agree, Eric. I think that point is very well made. Getting some different lenses on this topic, this area, this whole product digitalization focus. When we see it from different perspectives, I think that's when we really can learn something and get something new out of this. I am excited about this like you are. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to roam around all kinds of interesting topics and maybe have some episodes where people are like, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? But, it'll be interesting any way you slice it. So I'm pretty excited to get this started. I don't know about you guys.
100%. And I'm looking forward to being back here next week. Same time, same place.
And before we wrap up, I really just want to, put out there that we're doing this to help you guys, to help everyone out there, not just to hear ourselves talk. So if you have topics you want to hear about, people you want to hear us talk to, things you want to find out, let us know, because that's the only way, this is going to give us, what we want to accomplish, which is helping all of you guys. So give us feedback, please.
Yes, please. Make it a conversation. That's the whole point.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's about it, right? I mean, we kind of covered who we are. We kind of covered what we're up to, and I think we want to get after it. So I hope everybody comes back and joins us later.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.